Welcome to the 700 Club. A bridge between Jordan and Israel reopened today after 3 Israelis were killed there in a terror attack yesterday. Thousands of people in Jordan celebrated their murder and called for all Jews to leave the Middle East.
Meanwhile, a secret Hamas document is now in the news. It shows the terror group's strategy to divide Israelis and manipulate public opinion. Chris Mitchell brings us the story from Jerusalem.
A lone terrorist murdered 3 Israeli guards Sunday at the Allenby crossing between Jordan and the West Bank, Judea and Samaria. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu condemned what he called the despicable shooting and pointed the blame at Iran.
We're surrounded by a murderous ideology led by Iran's axis of evil. The murderers do not differentiate between us.
In Jordan, thousands celebrated the terrorist attack, the terrorists, and threatened Israel.
We say to Netanyahu that your entity is vanishing and that there is no solution for you except to return to the countries from which you came. There is no place for you in Palestine.
Amid Israel's fight against terrorism, the push for a ceasefire and hostage deal has hit another roadblock. The Washington Post and Israel's Channel 12 reporting Hamas has introduced another obstacle to prevent a deal. A new demand where Israel would release 100 more terrorists serving life sentences than had been agreed to. Israeli sources putting the chances of a deal at close to zero. But protesters are still demanding a Gaza war ceasefire and return of the hostages in Israel.
We can't get any more bodies. We can't see body bags. We are fed up with the way this is being run.
The protests come as the German newspaper Bild published the contents of a secret Hamas document that implies the protesters may have played into Hamas's strategy. The paper claims the document shows Hamas leader Sinwar's plans to deceive, manipulate international opinion, and psychologically torture hostages' relatives. It said psychological pressure on the families of the prisoners must continue to be applied, both now and during the first phase, so that public pressure on the enemy government will increase. The document also exposed how Hamas manipulated the Israeli and international media. In case of a breakdown in talks, Hamas instructed its people to say Israel rejected the compromise proposals formulated by the U.S. regardless of the facts, so Hamas will not be seen as responsible for the failure to reach an agreement. The manipulation had one goal: rebuilding Hamas's military and maintaining control over the Gaza Strip. The IDF says it has had the document in its hands for months and is from a mid-level Hamas leader. During Sunday's cabinet meeting, Netanyahu addressed the revelation.
The vast majority of Israeli citizens do not fall into this trap of Hamas. They know that we're committed with all our might to achieving the goals of the war.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Well, I hope our own elected leaders won't fall into this same trap. It's always been just absolutely puzzling to me that all this pressure is being put on Israel to come to an agreement. They've agreed now 3 different times for a deal with Hamas that would release the hostages, and every single time it's Hamas that's rejected it. The pressure should be entirely upon Hamas. They're the ones who started this on October 7th. They're the ones who are continuing to keep hostages. And I remind every American, there are American hostages in those tunnels. The pressure needs to be on the terror group, on the ideology of hate that says no Jew can exist in the Middle East. That's the cry coming out of Jordan. That's the cry coming out of Gaza. That's the cry coming out of Hezbollah. That's the cry coming out of Iran. Let's stand with Israel. In other news, Israeli forces are going after terrorist threats in the West Bank. Ephraim Graham has that story from the CBN newsroom. Ephraim?
Gordon, it is Israel's largest operation in 2 decades against those threats. Our correspondent Chuck Holton has this look at the ongoing security challenges in this contested region.
I'm standing on Mount Gerizim, which is situated in Samaria, what much of the world calls the West Bank. This city below me was once the biblical city of Shechem. Now it's known as Nablus. This region right over here is the Balata refugee camp. It is very well known and notorious as the birthplace of the Al-Aqsa Martyrs Brigade and other terrorist organizations, and that's why this region is a huge hotbed for terrorist activity, especially these days.
The reason why we haven't seen all-out war between forces in Judea and Samaria and Israel is because Israel has been going in with significant intelligence and hyper-focusing military activities on specific terror groups, small groups, as they arise.
As a main thing, we have to understand it's not our war, it's a common war. Because terror from here can raise all over the world.
For Israelis in Judea and Samaria, the threat of terrorism is a daily reality. Many feel they could be targeted at any moment.
There are a lot of the Arabs/Palestinians living in our region, and we've been living kind of side by side, and sometimes they mind their own business, and many times they try and kill us. Ever since October 7th, it's gotten worse.
This town I'm driving through is an Arab Muslim town in Samaria called Hawara, and it's been the site of a lot of unrest since October 7th. As a matter of fact, you can still see the remnants of burned tires in the street and things like that. And it's gotten to the point where it's so dangerous for Israelis to drive through here because their cars have a different color license plate than the cars from the Palestinian Authority, that they've started to take a longer route to go around and bypass this town when they have to come through this area.
United States of America must stand strong with the people in Israel in this operation by attack the terror and not waiting for the terror to attack us. We have to clean this terror. Everyone that wants to live and stay here in peaceful, welcome.
Israeli authorities are particularly concerned about UNRWA schools potentially fostering extremism here. There's growing evidence these UN-run institutions have educated and recruited young Palestinians to join in terrorist activities.
I never seen school books in different states that educate how you prepare and build a bomb. We must solve that. You cannot educate to kill us and think that we will let you live here beside us. It's too much risky.
As tensions continue to simmer in the West Bank, Israelis are taking extra precautions to protect their families.
There's a lot more security. There are more security cameras. We've been purchasing drones, thermal drones, and they've really been a lot of help. More guns, more guns in every community, and hoping and praying. I spend my time praying.
From Samaria, I'm Chuck Holton for CBN News.